Trying to get to it. I think you should.
Lisa Baker, City of Winters.
Present.
Olin Woods, County of Yolo.
Present.
Lulu Singh, City of Davis.
Present.
And West Sacramento is vacant. Woodland is absent. Maria Elena Sepulveda at large.
Present.
And Valerie Green at large.
Present.
We have quorum, thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we move on, I would like to take a public moment to welcome our two new advisory committee members. And congratulations. Thank you for serving with you. This is the time for comments from the public regarding matters that are not on the agenda but are within the purview of the Yolo Transportation District. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes per person. Please identify yourself and the community in which you live before providing your comments. And seeing no one in the audience wishing to give comments, is there anyone online who would wish to comment?
No public comment online.
Seeing no public comment in person or online, we will close public comment and we will move on to the consent calendar. So the consent calendar for this meeting are the minutes of the regular meeting of January 27th. For new members, you may vote. It just shows that you are affirming that the meeting took place and that you read the minutes, just in case people are curious as to the rule. So with that, do I have anyone who'd like to move the consent calendar? I have a motion from Olin to move the consent calendar. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second. All right, I have a motion, a second. Anybody have a further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None, that passes. This takes us on to the regular calendar, and since we might be expecting one more, chair's prerogative to move the chair and vice chair to later on in the agenda. So for that, we can get started on the Yolo Active Transportation Plan.
Good evening, Chair Baker and committee members. The item before you this evening relates to the Yolo Active Transportation Corridors project, which we've been making progress on over the past couple of years. Recall at the January meeting, we provided you with an overview of the YATSE development process, draft plan. We didn't ask for any action at that meeting. We wanted to give you time to sort of absorb the information and spend some time with the plan. But that we would return to the committee here in March for a formal action. So tonight, our associate planner, Brenda Lomeli, and she's also the YATSE project manager, and I will reorient the committee to the project with a few refresher slides. But our intent today primarily is to focus on an additional document that we've developed called the YATSE implementation strategy. And consistent with your role as an advisory body to the YoloTD board, at the presentation's conclusion, we will ask for your recommendation for the board to approve the YATSE draft plan and implementation strategy with any revisions that you suggest. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Brenda to get us started.
Well, thank you, Brandon. So the YATSE is an active transportation plan. It's multi-use trails that will help us address mobility barriers for low-income and minority residents in Yolo County. The district was awarded $1.2 million from a federal grant called the RACE grant. The agreement has two phases, which first phase is planning and outreach. Phase 2 is designing and engineering. The schedule started in fall 2024 and scheduled to run through winter 2027.
Hey, Brenda, I just want to make sure committee members know they have copies of the slides. If they want to follow it. Okay.
They're very handy for making notes.
All right. That's the word site. Wonderful. So the agreement has two phases, like I mentioned. I think I already said that. So YATSE accomplished 3 objectives. One, establish a long-term vision and planning document for countywide active transportation corridors. It also establishes priorities to complete construction to up to at least 1, up to 3, if there's any funding available. And then 3 replaces the 2023 Yolo County Bicycle Transportation Plan. Like Brian mentioned earlier, we brought this item to this board and this body, and the purpose was to definitely give you guys an update on the Yahtzee project, and also, you know, provide a Yahtzee draft plan. And we, you know, felt there wasn't enough time, so therefore we are here again. During that time, we did project milestones, we provided a Yahtzee plan organization, we formal action taken to date, and next steps. So, and then just number 3, again, we're here because we want you guys to take action and we can take to the YoloTD. During the January 27th meeting, the feedback that we heard from you folks was, you know, how did you guys want to understand better on how we develop the scoring criteria? During the May 5th meeting, we brought an entire item describing the entire criteria to this board. We also had the scoring criteria to our Yahtzee TAC meeting. And also, if you guys want to review more in detail in chapter 4 of the Yahtzee plan, it's there for you to review. Number 2, you also you asked if we were coordinating with Yolo County in regard to other projects. We do have regular coordination meetings with them, and also we provide updates to Yolo County TAC. And then number 3, you know, funding opportunities. You know, this board also mentioned, like, what are we doing regarding to funding? And that's something that we are looking into. We're actively pursuing and focusing on implementation strategy that we will review next. And then the Yahtzee plan, so that was all the chapters that we talked about our last meeting. What's new here is the executive summary that Brian will talk about, and the implementation strategy that he will also go in depth here. Then we have the Yahtzee network. You see all those lines.
This where I pick up?
Yeah.
All right, so we're just going to quickly look at the corridor network that the plan has developed, and just to sort of stage set here, this map shows all the different corridors that are in the plan, and the dark blue are sort of the higher priority segments in the plan, and then as you go to lighter blue into green, then those are projects that are categorized in lower priority sort of category. But it's important to note that there's lots of variables that can affect whether any given segment advances, but we did establish criteria, as mentioned earlier, to evaluate the segments, and this just sort of reflects how they came out in that scoring system. Next slide, please. So really what we're wanting to focus on is what are we going to do with this plan? Is it just going to sit on the shelf, or are we going to really commit to trying to implement it? And so that's what the implementation strategy tries to do. Is it does serve as sort of that roadmap towards implementation. And, it's going to be a living document, and it will be updated on most likely an annual basis, and we'll be monitoring progress towards it and providing that information to this committee, to the YoloTD board, to Yolo County Transportation Advisory Committee, and also to the Yolo County Board of Supervisors. So really wanted to supplement the draft plans, funding and implementation section with something a little more concrete. What our consultants provided to us was, things that we could do and things that, ways that we could implement this, which is appropriate for their scope of work, but we really wanted to, take it an additional step and show what we intend to do and how we intend to implement it. This document will also help us, identify those near and midterm priorities. It's also important to have a good understanding of sort of what variables and what factors are at play when you actually want to start a project or when you want to, advance that project. We just need to be realistic about what some of those challenges are. And once we understand what those challenges are, then we can identify where leadership and partnerships and funding are needed in order to keep projects moving forward. Some of those factors, include, next slide, please. Some of those factors include, working with our partner agencies. We don't own any of the public right of way where a lot of these corridors are proposed to, to be placed. And so we're probably going to be partnering with Caltrans or partnering with Yolo County or partnering with City of Woodland or City of Davis, or both, or all three, or all four. But we all have to be in the same place where we can, where we can prioritize it at the same time. And so, and move that project forward with the commitment of all of the partners. And so those have to be in alignment. And if they're not, then maybe, some segments need to wait until that priority alignment can occur between the partner agencies. But even probably more challenging than those priorities is really the funding. We live in a world where transportation funding is scarce, and funding for dedicated active transportation infrastructure projects is even more scarce. For example, the largest pot of funding available in California is the California Transportation Commission's Active Transportation Program. In the last cycle, they had $2.5 billion of requests and projects, over 283 projects, and they were able to fund 13 of them. So that's the level of need in the state, and that's the competition that our projects would be up against if we were trying to apply to those programs. And we intend to, as we're able to, but it's, funding is a challenge, and we have to get creative, and we need to really leverage those partnerships as much as we can. Community and stakeholder support is going to continue to be important. We have a lot of community support from the people that participated in our process, but that stakeholder support from our partners, adjacent property owners on corridors where we're trying to, advance projects, those all have to be, addressed and in alignment for projects to be successful and to actually see them constructed on the ground. And of course, this plan is going to take decades to implement. There's lots of miles of pathway proposed, and it's going to take a long-term commitment. And so it's going to take steady progress and persistence to see this vision through to its completion. Next slide, please. Oh, you're already there. Okay, so we're going to look real quick at what we're calling our phase 1 priority corridors. Actually, it's not going to be real quick. We're going to go in a little bit deeper to each of these, so you can really visualize what we're proposing to do. You can see on this slide that there's 4 projects that are currently in progress, 2 that we're leading as YoloTD as part of this actual YATSE project. And then there are 2 other projects, one being led by Yolo County for Winters to El Rio Villa, that segment. And then the City of West Sacramento is sponsoring a project between West Sacramento and Clarksburg. Next slide. So diving a little bit more closely to the Madison-Esparto segment, we propose that project would start just west of the roundabout, right there in town, and would extend to Madison or to Esparto Middle School. We had originally proposed that it would stop at Yolo Avenue, where State Route 16 heads north, but we've thought a little bit more deeply about it, and given that one of the primary objectives is to help Madison and Esparto residents get back and forth to each other, and to enable school children to be able to bicycle to school, that extending that project all the way to the middle school makes a lot of sense. So that's what we're going to do. Next slide. With all these segments, you'll start to see some imagery, right, to help you visualize what the projects might look like. And with this slide, the image on the left shows State Route 16 heading westbound towards Esparto, just west of Madison. You can see that's a high-speed highway with no options for active transportation that anybody who's not a fearless cyclist would want to take. The images on the right are examples, just sort of conceptual renderings of what a path on the south side could look like as you head towards Esparto. Next slide. So Woodland to Davis segment is another one that we're currently in the design process for. And so we're looking at two possible alignments, one that goes straight up County Road 102 to County Road 25, where it would tie into the existing path network in Woodland, or heading west on County Road 27 and up County Road 101. Next slide, please. Here's the County Road 102 heading northbound. This is just between County Road 29 and County Road 27. On the left is existing conditions, and on the right shows a conceptual rendering of what an off-street bike path could look like along that corridor. Next slide. Grant Avenue I-505 overcrossing is a really important project. The city of Winters has been advancing and has recently handed off to Yolo County. This would connect the El Rio via affordable housing community east of I-505 with the rest of Woodland, with Winters. And they also don't have a safe way of meeting their everyday needs in the city to the west. So this project would propose to construct a separated overcrossing over the highway. And it's a much needed facility and has been needed for quite some time. Next slide, please. And so the image on the left shows what sort of the existing conditions looks like with some, enhancements. Sorry, with some photo enhancements just for coloration. And then the image on the right shows a conceptual rendering of what the separated bike path overcrossing would look like. Next slide.
Brian, do you have a question as we go along? You want us to wait?
If they're quick, we can take them now. Otherwise, I prefer to get through.
I'm sure. I just have a quick one. Is Caltrans not interested in hanging that bike separated facility onto their existing overpass?
They looked at that very closely as an alternative, and because the overpass is so old and has some structural limitations to it, that it wasn't a feasible option.
Okay, thank you.
Where are we? Right. Clarksburg Branch Line Trail Extension. This path would extend from the terminus of the existing path at the City of West Sacramento's city limits and continue all the way down to Clarksburg via Pump House Road. Next slide. And so here we are on Pump House Road looking north, existing conditions on the left, and then, what a nice nature trail bike path could look like to connect the two if you were to access it from Pump House Road. Okay, next slide. So now part of
Right before you go, I was just gonna extend that, clarifying,
Sure.
easy questions.
Yeah.
And Madam Chair, if you could remind the speakers to please turn on the green button and put the mic close to them so that the recording can capture their comments.
I think you just did.
Oh, look at that.
Are there any clarifying questions? Shoot, super short. You've already had your turn on.
No, I'm just trying to develop.
None to my right or my left. Okay, let's move on to.
All right, so, another role that the implementation strategy has is to get a good understanding of what costs are and what funding needs are starting to look like for the projects. And so we sort of quantified some of that in the draft implementation strategy. And you can see that these are not inexpensive projects. These are these require a lot of investment in order to see them through to fruition. For example, the Grant Avenue I-505 overcrossing is understandably one of the most expensive ones because you're constructing a new structure over a freeway. Woodland to Davis, just because of its length, Esparto to Madison is really the bargain here for us. So, that one's, of real interest to us, especially given the community needs. So, that one's important to us. But this gives you a sense of the overall cost of these projects as well as the funding that has already been committed to them. Next slide. So this slide just shows you sort of what, which projects have funding and at what stage of development that they have. So most of the projects have some level of funding for non-construction, but none of them have any construction funding yet. So we're all trying to get ourselves into a position to be more competitive for competitive grant funding, because none of the project sponsors can really have the capacity to fund construction of these projects ourselves. Next slide. With that said, it's going to take us a while to sort of work our way through those 4 projects in phase 1, but nonetheless, we thought that, there's still worth, thinking ahead to, what projects in phase 2, we would want to advance, once it makes sense to start doing that. So, 3 segments that we're, really interested in are the Madison to Woodland segment to connect up with the phase 1 Madison to Sparto segment, the Winters Davis segment to connect the Russell Boulevard path to the phase 1 El Rio Via Winters project, and then Davis to West Sac. Really, that's really our County Road 32A, and we'll get into a little bit more detail in those right now, starting with the West Sacramento to Davis section. So this County Road 32A, that's what we're looking at. Next slide, please. That's what we're looking at here on this slide. And this road is planned to be realigned for safety reasons because of the danger and the safety issues at County Road 105, where there's an at-grade crossing. So it would either be realigned as a safer at-grade crossing, or it would be a grade separated crossing for vehicles. Next slide, please. So what that would do is conceivably, County Road 32A would be able to be in its current form would be able to be abandoned as a vehicular road and repurposed as a bike path, which is what you see here on these images. So existing conditions to the left with the freeway further to the left, and then what it could look and feel like as a repurposed road. If that's not possible, then we could still look at, a separated path like you've seen in the other examples, adjacent to the road. All right, looking at Winters to Davis segment, we have a couple of options here. Like I mentioned, connecting the terminus of the existing Russell Boulevard bike path to the project that's proposed in phase 1, connecting El Rio Via with Winters. The other option could be to try to secure easements or rights of way to continue that path along Huda Creek. So we would explore a couple of options and see what that feasibility looks like. Go ahead, Owen.
I think that's a great idea. Along Route 128 is a suicide run, unless you really can widen it.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna need to have a certain amount of separation, just like on State Route 16. I mean, you're talking about similar traffic volumes and similar speeds. So with State Route 16, we probably don't have an alternative, alignment that we can choose. We're gonna have to be, in that same view shed. But with this Winters to Davis segment, we could conceivably, explore a path along the creek, which would be a nice, that would be a really nice experience for people.
And if I could, you put questions through the chair, and let's just focus on clarifying questions so we can get all of the input data together for ease of the,
We're getting close. We're on the home stretch now. And so the next slide here shows, this is approximately at the Stevenson Bridge Road intersection with Russell Boulevard, looking sort of northwest. See on the left, existing conditions. On the right, what sort of a off-street path could look and feel like. Right, and finally, Woodland to Madison segment. This is a really long segment. Might need to break this up into 2 segments, but for the purposes of this discussion, we would really like to be able to connect Madison and Woodland for a variety of reasons. So that's what you see here. Next slide, please. And on the left, you see existing conditions. This is heading eastbound, very closely approaching County Road 98, right at the edge of Woodland. And on the right, what a nice off-street facility can look like. And you can see that all of these paths really kind of fit in nicely with the environment and are something that hopefully this type of imagery can sort of help, those who might have concerns, visualize sort of the impact or lack thereof that these facilities would have on, visuals and, operations and things like that for their farming needs and so forth. All right, next slide. So how do we maintain momentum? We're doing a lot of outreach right now. We've done a lot of outreach up to this point, and we, for a plan that's going to take several decades to construct, how do we continue to maintain momentum so that there's always excitement and interest in these projects being constructed? So a few things that we'll need to focus on as sponsors of this plan is to, us and the other project sponsors for the other two projects in phase one, we all need to demonstrate progress and credibility on the projects that we're working on right now. But additionally, we need to start, we need to prioritize using what local funds we can for non-construction work to get our projects ready, shovel ready or competitive for, grant programs that can fund the rest of design. We have to show some initial investment so that we can show that projects are real, they're feasible, they've identified any fatal flaws and that we've avoided any fatal flaws. So that's going to be really important moving forward. And then we need to keep projects moving within the pipeline. That's why we're sort of thinking about phase two, so that there's always a project in motion, so that there's no sort of dead time, no dead space where nothing is happening and then people forget about it and then they have nothing to look forward to. Coordination with our project partners and other local agencies is going to be really important, keeping them engaged, keeping them updated, and keeping them involved with the projects. We also need to leverage existing opportunities as they might present themselves. For example, if Caltrans has a safety project that they're working on Highway 16 or 128 or something, to maybe advance a project that might not be as high of a priority as another one in order to sort of maximize that opportunity to leverage their funds to help design and construct some of these facilities. So we're always going to need to be thinking about how can we maximize and take best advantage of the resources that are already being put into a given corridor. And then finally, we need to provide regular updates, as I mentioned earlier, to our board, to this body, to the Yolo County Board, so that they understand that even though you can't see it, things are still happening, right? Once you start seeing a project being constructed, 95% of the work and all the decision-making has already been done. So, these phases are really important, but it's hard for people to remember that there's a really exciting thing happening. You just can't see it yet. And so we have to make sure that they can see it, they can visualize it, and that we're giving those updates. And now finally, one thing that we need to do at YoloTD is to establish a countywide prioritized capital improvement plan, which would be the highest priority transportation projects for their countywide. And, some of these YOTC segments could be included in that capital improvement plan. And as I mentioned earlier, because transportation funding is so scarce, if we need to, advance a sort of, a local revenue measure, having a prioritized list of projects that people will know would be funded with that revenue, and they see YOTC segments in there, then that can generate excitement for what that revenue measure would be able to do for the community. And I think that concludes. Nope, sorry, almost. Next steps. I mentioned earlier, we're doing a lot of outreach. So between now and the end of May, we're talking to boards like this one. So we have the Citizens Advisory Committee. We've got a project level TAC meeting tomorrow with all of the local agency staff. Gonna go to Yolo County's Transportation Commission, Woodland, Winters, West Sacramento's Transportation Commission, Davis Commission, and so forth. Until, hopefully by mid-May, or early summer, we will have gone to both YoloTD board and the Yolo County Board of Supervisors for approval, because this will replace their 2013 bicycle transportation plan. In the meantime, we're still working on the design for the two segments that we referenced earlier. And those will continue to progress through this calendar year. Finally, so we're asking this board to recommend that the YoloTD board approve the plan and the implementation strategy, just so you know what we're asking from you. So that is the last slide. I'll stop talking and I'll look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you very much. Let's start, just our first round of questions, on my left. Do you have questions or comments?
No, need a minute to think.
Okay,
I do have, a few questions. The main question I have is, you mentioned that you'll need ongoing coordination with multiple agencies. Beyond the initial outreach stated here on the next step slide, how will you maintain ongoing coordination between like Caltrans and et cetera over time to make sure that there's projects that they may be doing and have funded are not missed as moments of opportunity to coordinate?
Yeah, so we two things. One is we have regular coordination meetings with Caltrans District 3, specifically for the Madison to Spargo segment. So we know that we're having regular conversations with them, and that's an opportunity for us to ask them what do they have on their horizon. We did learn from them that segment was going to be a corridor where they were going to be doing some maintenance and safety improvements, but they subsequently shifted their priority from that segment over to the segment between Woodland and I-505. So that was an opportunity that we were hoping to be able to capitalize on with Caltrans District 3, but because of all of their sort of pavement maintenance, they have very high pavement maintenance needs, and they have a very big district, and so they said that their priorities shift around quite a bit. So it really isn't until I think they start getting into their own design work as to sort of being committed to a given segment of highway. We also have regular coordination meetings with all of our local agencies on a quarterly basis. So we meet with City of West Sacramento, we meet with Woodland, Davis, the county, and we're going to add Caltrans District 3 to that as well. And we also meet with Winters as well. So that's if we're meeting quarterly, then we can make this a standing agenda item and make sure that we're continually asking the question, okay, what's coming up for you? Here's what we're working on. Do you have anything that's compatible with that? So too much time doesn't pass before decisions start being made and opportunities get missed.
Okay. Unless Luba had a question.
Oh, yeah, I was wondering if the community,
thank you very much.
oh, sorry, so I was, thinking if the community can do something, in terms of keeping the momentum going, including like raising funds and stuff.
Well, we would love to have the community sort of get behind this and try to keep the awareness and the excitement elevated. I think it really kind of depends on how you would define sort of fundraising, right? The costs on these are really quite big, and while we would welcome any contributions people could make, I think that we kind of need to have something more formalized so that we know exactly how much funding we could expect and when.
Oh, because on this page called next steps, I see advisory boards outreach. That's why I thought if there's any like community outreach or community engagement. For example, like a farmers market,
Yeah, we spent we did 2 phases of community outreach and over 30 outreach workshop. So we're sort of, we've completed our community outreach and engagement for developing the plan. And that's why we're going to the advisory boards. Now, there are ways that we can still promote promote this vision to the communities, but right now we're trying to get, we're trying to get formal approval of the plan.
Is there anything the community can do to get, like, in terms of getting a formal approval as well as getting projects shovel ready?
Talking about it,
Um,
on social media, talking about it at city council, county board meetings, wherever you can. I think that would probably be the biggest help at this point.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I also want to go ahead and add that, YoloTD and the team, I'm like, I definitely believe on outreach and definitely I feel like, we are, public servants. So I agree with you. I know that's like one of my main focus to ensure that, we go to spaces where people that usually don't come forward and use their voice, because it will affect, especially unincorporated areas. Like we mentioned the 505, right? That's something that, the housing authority and several residents there have been talking about. So again, we're definitely very focused on our community, having support, attending these board meetings, and, voicing and making public comment, that they are in support, and also just creating some pressure, for our, different boards. And, yeah, so again, I do appreciate you making that comment, and it is something that we definitely as a team have always prioritized, and ensuring that those voices and that the community, are always in support of our project.
Madam Chair, if I could jump in on this too. I really appreciate the question, and I think it's a good challenge to us, because we focus on community outreach in terms of getting input to the plan. But I think it's something that we can take back and think about as a team about how could we engage? There's a lot of very active groups, all over Yolo County, bicyclists and, equity organizations that are focused on justice. And there's, how could we go out to them and what could they do to help make this happen? I think that's a good challenge for us to go back and think about.
I actually had on my note regarding that, maybe not individual community members, but community groups like Phil Davis and Bike Woodland and Davis Bike and Tree Davis and all of those that work in the sustainability and equity social justice space would be good partners. Just for example, Cool Davis, the county, and many other NGOs and governments are actually right now working in a sustainability resource group and choosing projects. And I'm not sure transportation's got their hat in the ring, and yet bicycling and shade and access are all big sustainability components. So definitely something to do. Great point.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else, Brad?
Yes, kind of building up on that. Something to make it easier for community members to share amongst themselves would be perhaps if there was on the Yahtzee website link itself, on Yolo's website, there was an image that was easily shareable with these conceptual drawings, something that was phase 1 as one image is downloadable, and then phase 2 as a separate image is downloadable. This way people can share that or print it out at their respective organizations.
Nice.
That's kind of everything else is
Great, that's fantastic. Olin.
I've got a couple of things. One that just following on this conversation though. I think you're very smart to be putting this together. I fully support the plan. It's a great idea, and it, I think it's so important to have projects that are plan ready, maybe not funded, but plan ready, or some significant thinking going toward that particular project. Because when the projects come along, that's what they're looking for. I go back to the time when, Obama first took over, and there was a need to get projects out there. And they were throwing money to projects that were ready to go. And that's how it happens. And at least at SACOG, at one point, they were giving money to projects that were not in the program, but that were ready to go. And so anyway, keep going in that direction. This is wonderful. And also the idea, I think, that you're coordinating with all the other agencies in the county. That's not usual. And it's really can be helpful when you come to programming and you just hand them a package and say, we all agree with this. All the cities support this county project as their #1 project for the year. And that's, I think, where the underlying thing of this plan is. And I think that was the idea that was originally part of the idea for this agency.
Yeah,
And it really never got off the ground. Initially, and now it's happening, and I think it's fantastic. A couple of, some dumb questions, some really small and some big questions. I noticed in the guts of as I went quickly through this, there's an O&D study. It talks about the trips between different cities in the county and so on. And I noticed that nowhere in those O&D studies is there any mention of the Davis to Sacramento trip, Woodland to Sacramento, West Sac to Sacramento? That would be, that's, to me, it's a big picture thing, and it would be very interesting, I think, to possibly include that. Then another one is, I noticed that you tied together, you've got some mention of the fact that the bike study done by the county in 2013. I think it's important to, and I didn't find it in here. I didn't have time to go back and look. But I think it's important to point out why that study at the time was done by the county and why it's being done differently now. And specifically, I don't believe this is just a bike study. You've also got pedestrian use. Now, is transit use also included in here or not? It's just bike and ped.
Well, scooters, skateboards, all
Right,
the things.
okay,
Okay,
okay.
but micro mobility, the active modes as opposed to transit.
So if that's pointed out in that section, then fine, and if it's not, I suggest that you do that. And also, just the shift from the county taking that on, to you taking that on, and why this agency took it on. And I think it's a positive thing. You've gotten the agreement from the county. And I make a big point of it. Let's see. Yeah, read my writing here.
That's always my problem.
As I said to Brian, that sounds like a new problem.
Yeah, it is. I'm gonna say that. Okay.
It wasn't me problems.
The issue of safety. I think it's important to address it, but the bike scooter thing is just crazy. I see kids that look like they're about 8 years old flying along on these electric bikes or scooters, no helmets. And just last week, a woman was killed, a woman, 60-year-old woman was killed by a guy on a scooter. Now that they're still checking out, the police are still doing the review and trying to find and the investigation. But my goodness, people are gonna get killed, little kids are gonna get killed, adults are gonna get killed. And I think, I'm glad you've got a safety item in there, and I'd goose it up a little bit. To me, it's just a scary deal. Bike lane specs. From a design issue and maintenance. the bike paths in Davis, I mean, they're numerous and great, but boy, some of them are really in bad shape. And I know that the city of Davis is addressing those, but there's gotta be something going on with the design of bike paths in Davis and maybe other cities as well. I don't know, throughout the region, or, you know, the county. I mean, it's just really basic stuff. You've gotta, consider expansion and contraction of the asphalt when you build those things. And, you know, in Davis, they just did a big job on the, Pewter Creek bike path that goes, well, basically, it's right in my neighborhood, near Old Willow Bay. But they did a project here, they finally repaved it, and it's wonderful. But before that, my God, I did everything I could to avoid riding.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, and just to be clear for the other members, so our plan works on or proposes facilities between the cities, not within the city, because they have their own active transportation plans and they have their own pavement maintenance program. So what Olin's referring to is sort of the, you know, the inability for the city to adequately fund the maintenance and sort of rehabilitation of the network that they have. And that's something that we need to be mindful of as we propose new facilities, because it's, you know, when you think about sort of the position that Yolo County is in, they have a really hard time maintaining their existing road network, right? So we're advocating to construct new facilities. So the tension there could be, well, okay, but who's gonna maintain it? Because, you know, are they gonna wanna assume the, you know, maintenance, the maintenance cost of that new facility, or, and if so, is that gonna come at the expense of some other core critical, you know, road rehabilitation needs they have? So we are thinking about those things, and we do realize that sort of, you know, those issues need to be addressed, you know, before we go too far along on, you know, committing to projects, so that we're not saddling them with, you know, it's easy to get construction funds. It's impossible to get repavement funds.
so they need to be designed right in the first place. Otherwise, you're gonna have.
That's true. I mean, when you use the Davis examples, some of those were just laid down as asphalt over dirt, right? And so
no base.
the engineering underneath really matters, because that tells you how long that bike path will hold up to the environment. And there's definitely ways that can be done to make sure that we're talking decades out before you need to have major rehabilitation. So, yeah, that's.
Exactly right.
Mhm.
Sounds like we're on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
Right. The other issue with bike paths is the air quality. And, the biggest example that I can think of is the bike path over the causeway. The winds in this area flow from south to north. The prevailing winds are south to north. So the bike path is placed on the north side of the freeway. So you're picking up all the smoke from the traffic. Now, they're going at high speed, they're already warmed up, so it's not as bad as it might be. But that's something I think that folks need to pay attention to with bike paths is where they're sited.
Yeah.
And consider the air quality.
Mhm.
I don't know that there was ever an air quality study done on that bike path when it got built. The state was pushing it hard and Davis was pushing it hard. And they wanted something there.
Yeah.
The bike folks did, and it's good, it's great. But
I have to-
put it on the other
But I have
side.
to correct you on.
Okay,
Please.
I said we're gonna get into the weeds.
Right,
Right.
but the wind blows in the opposite direction of whatever direction I'm going.
I know. That is exactly my experience as well.
Okay, so we know which way the wind blows now.
Okay.
Okay, one last thing here. If I can read my writing. Okay, we already talked about the situation in Winters and preferred routing if it works out. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria Elena.
I just wanted to give you a comment on what you put together when we're talking about having the buy-in from the larger communities. I saw things like agro-tourism in there, which I think is a really good way to entice people to want to invest. Some barriers that I heard tonight that I didn't necessarily see in the report were things like property owners and being able to have that discussion with them. But I think that you've done a really good write up on what the benefits could be to them if they were to work with you on this. And then making sure that things are structurally sound. I honestly didn't think about that. I was just like, oh, you know, yeah, it's a bike path. Decades, being a lifelong resident of West Sacramento, they just put in those nice little paths that I used to have to walk across the railroad tracks and in the dirt and yeah, and now it's all paved and pretty and it took years to get there. So I appreciate that there's a plan that's in place that is not only talking about the benefits, but being shovel ready, being like, here's what we want to do. Yes, we know there's a deficit in the funding, and then your plans for leveraging those relationships across local, state, and federal relationships you already have, I think is a really good start.
Thanks. And that kind of speaks to one of Olin's initial points, which is being ready, because it just seems kind of like with these types of projects, it tends to be kind of feast or famine, depending on sort of what federal and state administration priorities are. So if we just make sure that we're ready, then we can sort of jump on the opportunities when they come.
Valerie.
Hi, I just want to comment that, I just think that this is, a very well, thought out plan and that replaces the 2013 original plan and, want to see if that's really pretty well.
So I just have a few comments, echo everything that my fellow committee members have said. Really have been enjoying seeing the greater sophistication and items and really well thought out design and presentation that's been going on for quite a while now, so kudos. I am also a huge fan of CIPs, but maybe not always for the same reason that you might think of them. Kind of going to your point about being ready, you can use your CIP as a way to shop funding. So for example, in my day job, if I got extra things like federal block grant money, the first thing I will do is go shop my public works CIP program. And I will not pick the fully funded projects and I will not pick the unfunded projects, but I will go to the underfunded projects that are not moving forward because they don't have gap financing. And I will look to fill those in. So I think if you set up your CIP well and you are actually dividing it into those three kind of buckets, then that is a really great way to proceed and allows you to start to shop the right kind of funding. The other thing, of course, is that when you're setting up your CIP, set it up with a maintenance cycle in it so that you're already ready to start to think about what that maintenance cycle is going to look like. And again, start to compile your money to be able to do that. Now, let's talk about money. Because I saw that you had lots of kinds of money, but some money I didn't see that you could go after would be things like CFP money, so community funding, project funding, which it used to be called congressional earmarks. And while it's not going to be like all your money, it can be up to like 3 or 4 million. And there's at least one project on there that if you had a CFP, you could knock it right out and finish it. Your congressional leaders and your senators all have CFP grants that they can make, and I think it's worth an early discussion with their reps on projects that they might be willing to support for a congressional earmark. Happy to chat with you guys about that. I do a lot of them. The other thing is community development block grant. The county is a non-entitlement jurisdiction, which means they can apply to the state, which means they can often get more money than you get as an entitlement grantee. It is competitive. You cannot use block grant for things like arterials, but you can do ADA improvements all day long. And so every one of these components is gonna have an ADA requirement, and that is a great way to fill, that portion of your funding gap. I appreciated the discussion about your variables and how things move priorities up and down, but I do think that if you're trying to engage, the public, kind of to Lulu's point about the, Maria Elena's points, on the public, I do think that having a good sort of explanation from a layperson's perspective on what kinds of things move a project up and down regardless of priority would be super helpful in terms of how you're managing expectations. And you do have to manage expectations because these projects are long. And at some point, people will be frustrated, and I do encourage you to have a plan for that so that people can keep with you, while you're managing those expectations. And even, for example, talk to their congressional reps about the need to get that project funded. So, anyway, I love it. Glad to see the active transportation. I know it's been a long time coming, and, what are my comments? Does anybody have any last comments?
Oh, Madam Chair, I have a question.
Good morning.
Okay, I was wondering if, Yolo Transportation District has considered exploring becoming a partner with Partnership House Plan of California. It's an agency that's providing medical services in 24 Northern California counties. They cover Yolo County, and then they are currently being required to reinvest some of their funds back to the community they serve. And then I was thinking that, since this plan is to like help low income and minority residents in Yolo County, that could fall under a pillar of the whole person healthcare model. So I was just wondering, probably you guys have already considered this, right?
What's the name of the organization again?
Oh, it's called the Partnership House Plan of California.
CHP, it's a
PHC.
health, in partnership health plan. They are a Medi-Cal, and Medi provider.
Yeah, they are currently being required to reinvest some of their funds they received from the state. I thought, I was just wondering if this plan needs a little bit more money, maybe you guys can consider exploring that option.
I think thank you so much for suggesting that. I think we'd be very interested in learning more about that. And I know historically, when I was working in the nonprofit sector, there was an organization, I think is still around, called the California Endowment, which was doing something similar to what you're talking about. It was a lot of health plan providers that were pooling their funds for investment in communities, in healthy communities. And they funded some really great, interesting projects. So it's great to hear. I'd forgotten that was a thing, that those requirements existed, and would love to learn more about it.
Any leads you have, because we kind of think about, we look at things through a transportation funding lens, but if you've got another lens, whether it's through recreation, trails, public health.
Whole person model, because in order for doctors to really treat a patient, the idea is that this person also needs like reliable housing, reliable transportation, and all that stuff.
And if you're actually thinking of expanding into the healthcare, may I remind you, both Sutter and Kaiser have foundations that are engaged in healthy living, for which active mobility is part of that. So, and I would be remiss if I did not say why Brenda pointed at me about the 505 overcrosses. Because the whole thing started because people told me that it wasn't safe to get from El Rio Villas to Winters. And one evening after work on a rainy Friday, I parked my car at El Rio Villas and I walked across the bridge and I thought I was going to die. So if you've never walked that bridge, the sidewalk is about half the size of a standard sidewalk. And it is raised up so high that if you were tripped and fell into the roadway, you would land about midpoint of the roadway. You'd be thrown into the center of traffic. If you slipped and fell the other way, the balustrades are so wide, you can literally slip through them into the creek. And there is nothing there to prevent you from, or a small child, from going, over that. So after I made it, I actually called someone to come pick me up, and take me back to my car, because I wasn't gonna do it again. And then I started the conversation with our county supervisors, after I started the conversation with Brenda.
We did the same thing with a group of sort of regional leaders, including the statewide director of Caltrans at the time, Tony Tavares. And
We gotta
so
go walk
we,
over that bridge.
we all experienced it. Now it's a it's a Caltrans District 3 priority project. So, that personal, sometimes you have to experience these conditions yourself directly in order to understand the importance and the need.
So it is near and dear to my heart. Anyway, any last comments for folks? I think it's a great job.
We are looking for a motion, just to remind.
I was just about to ask if you needed a motion or if you had what you need. So hearing that, is there a motion to approve moving this plan forward with a recommendation for adoption to the board?
So moved.
I have a second, first. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Thank you very much. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? You got it. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We're gonna go back now to item 4, which is appoint chair and vice chair for 2026. And with that, I cannot remember if we do chair first and then vice chair or chair first. All right. With that, I am opening the floor for nominations for chair.
I would like to nominate Lisa Baker to continue as chair.
I would accept that nomination, but do I have a second?
I would second.
I have a first and a second. Is there anybody else who'd like to nominate someone for chair? Being none, call for the question. Sorry?
Oh, we are nominating chair right now, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yay, still there. In all seriousness, thank you very much. It really is an honor and humbling. Appreciate it. With that, we're gonna open nominations for vice chair. Do I have nomination for vice chair?
I would like to nominate myself. Do I need to like give a speech or anything?
We have someone nominating themselves for vice chair. Do we? One second. Do we have a second? We do not have a second. Is there any other nominations for vice chair?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Frank Reyes.
I have a nomination for Frank Reyes for vice chair. Is there a second? I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Now, do we have any discussion further? Seeing none, all in favor say
Wait,
aye. Oh, I forgot to
that's-
ask. Ray, do you want to be vice chair?
Yes, I accept.
All right. He says that with such enthusiasm, everybody. Okay, sorry about that, man. I just think everybody should want the job.
Madam Chair, I would suggest doing a roll call vote for
yes.
this, since we have two people who've been nominated.
We have 2 people nominated. Well, we didn't have a second for the first. Do you need a second?
For a motion to pass, yes, but not, but I think since there has been a second motion on the table, I do think we should do a roll call vote.
What I'm,
And I don't think you really technically need a second
do we
for
not
a
need a second?
nomination.
All right, so then we've got we have a race. All right, so we can do a roll call. The roll call vote for vice chair. Let's do, since Lulu was first, we'll do Lulu.
Madam Chair, if I may, I think that, Committee Member Zhang wanted to see if she could talk a bit about why she was,
All right,
should we give it an
sure.
opportunity to do it before we vote?
there's no speech required, but would you like to give?
Oh, yeah, I was wondering if like a speech was required.
No, but you can.
This would be a great opportunity for me to like learn faster and better about like how I can best contribute to the advisory committee. But I understand that if objection is strong because I have only been on the committee for a year.
Okay. Okay, so how are you proposing to do the roll call vote usually?
I would just say, since there's a motion and a second, I would ask Janine to just do a roll call vote so that we can make sure we capture all of the votes.
So we're just going to say which one we're voting for?
So we would normally do vote on one motion, and I think, but you have a motion with a second, so I don't know if that's,
That's not very how you do chair and vice chair.
okay. I'll step back. So I just think, but rather than doing a voice vote, since there's two different nominations, I would suggest doing a roll call vote. That was my only suggestion.
Yes, but you don't vote them in order, you vote them simultaneously because there are two people running. So you can either do like secret vote and they tabulate them, or you can have them say where they're casting their vote and then tally up the ayes and for each one. But you don't vote for one and then the other. So what's the preference, Madam Clerk?
I already got my first and my second, I can still call roll call. But
Well,
That's up to the chair.
yeah, that's it. Or you can just all say aye.
If you want us to do secret ballot, Madam Chair, we could get pieces of paper and we could do it that way. I've seen it
just
done
want to
different
be-
ways. I'm not an
I
expert.
simply want to be fair to both candidates
Absolutely.
and not prioritize them one way or the other because they're running against each other.
So would you like us to do secret ballots?
Sure, why don't we do that? It seems the easiest.
Okay, can we take a quick adjournment? We'll get some paper and
We'll take a-
let's huddle real quick, you and me. Okay, so we did a little bit of research,
Okey-dokey.
and the Brown Act does not allow us to do secret balloting.
All right then.
So,
I'm really sorry. Before that, I really needed to address something today. Can I speak up?
that's at the chair's
That's
discretion.
the chair. So we had an incident, when you left the room. And also I just kind of want to back up the train first. We have two folks who want to run. In my experience, you need a motion and second. So I apologize if you don't need a motion and second for running. And so we do have two candidates. We should probably allow both candidates to speak, and then we can go ahead and do that. Lulu, if you want to address your comments when you are speaking, that would.
Yes, I'm sorry, I have been trying my best to be respectful, but today when I was asking the question, if YoloTD has considered exploring, partnering with Partnership House Plan of California, Madam Chair Lisa Baker kept interrupting me, kept talking over me. I eventually just went silent because I thought, to be honest, in my mind, I thought perhaps she thinks she's white, on minority, I don't deserve to be heard. If I'm completely honest, if I had done that, well, Madam Chair, Lisa Baker was talking, I would have been cut out. And that made me feel extremely disrespected. Also, when I was trying to ask a question, make a comment, Madam Chair, kept telling me we are in an adjournment, we can talk. Yes, that is the rule, but are we allowed to be human for a moment? I don't mean to start any confrontation, but I indeed felt extremely disrespected because I was explaining what that organization was, and then you kept talking over me. You said, oh, this is the medical, blah, blah, blah. Madam Chair, if I or any of us had done that when you were speaking, you would have called us out.
I appreciate that. I apologize for cutting you off. Simply trying to say to reiterate, is a very exciting prospect. Totally support it. With regard to the break, just an admonishment that we can't discuss business when the committee meeting is not in session. Again, my deepest apologies. So with that, shall we go through what the process is gonna look like?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I was gonna ask if you would like to proceed with this item tonight, we can also table it for a subsequent meeting. We do have a motion on the table, and I think we had approval for Lisa Baker to continue as chair. We could continue the conversation about vice chair at our next meeting, if that's appropriate, or we can continue. I just would like to ask you, Madam Chair, what you'd like to do.
Well, I think I would like to do what makes what the committee's interest is. So what is the pleasure of the committee?
Go ahead, Fred.
I think in the best interest of the committee and moving business forward, it would be best to get this vote out of the way now so that we're not going over old business at the next meeting.
I appreciate that. Anyone else have comments on this?
I agree.
This end? Yes, okay.
Okay, in that case, Madam Chair, what I would suggest is, since the first motion was put on the table by committee member Zhang to nominate herself, I think we should vote on that first. And if there are the votes to support that, then that moves forward. If there are not the majority of the votes, then we would take a vote on the second motion, which was proposed, which was for committee member Reyes to become the vice chair. Does that sound right to everyone?
That works for me. The only thing I would say is maybe give everybody another minute to speak to their desire. We can start with you. If you want to add to your original statement.
Oh, thank you. I don't have anything to add. I simply needed to address that issue before we went on to do anything else. I didn't mean to be rude to anyone. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Frank.
Yes, okay, so I'll add a quick resume summary. So I was part of the Unitrans Advisory Committee before it was combined with several other committees in Davis to Transportation Committee. Probably, that was a while ago now, 4 or 5 years. I was part of the Unitrans Committee prior to that, and I was a student at UC Davis. I was a student driver for 2.5 years or such. So I joined this committee to kind of share the experiences of being both a driver, as well as a transit rider. I ride Yolo bus, Capital Corridor fairly regularly, in addition to riding my bike around town or in between various towns, Woodland and Davis, primarily. So I feel great providing my input to the committee for YATSE, Yolo bus policies, and coordination amongst other groups out there that are transportation related.
Is that your statement?
That is my statement.
All right, thank you. All right, what do you do next?
So I think that, I'm looking at Janine, I think the first step would be to do a roll call vote on the nomination of committee member Zhang to be the vice chair.
Olin Woods, County of Yolo.
No.
Lisa Baker, City of Winters.
No.
Frank Reyes at large.
No.
Maria Elena Sepulveda at large.
No.
And Valerie Green at large.
No.
Okay, motion does not pass.
All right, then we have a second.
I think we need to have Lou also gets to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lou will not vote. Sorry, my apologies.
She moved it, right?
I think she still
Oh,
gets to
that's
vote.
okay.
I don't need to vote. And for the next one, Frank, right? Olin Woods, County of Yolo.
Yes.
Lisa Baker, City of Winters.
Yes.
Lulu Zane, City of Davis.
No,
Maria Elena Sepulveda at large.
Yes.
Valerie Green at large.
Yes.
And do I call Frank? Frank Reyes at large.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
And we have a vice chair. Congratulations. And Lulu, thank you very much for putting your hat in the ring. It's really important to have people who want to participate and are so passionate about the subject. Thank you.
I know, I just feel that I don't know, I just objectively nominated myself. I feel that the entire community just turned against me. Well, it's not even that big of deal. That just, I don't know how to communicate that to you guys, because I don't think any of you cares.
Go.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Okay, that takes us to administrative reports. Madam Director.
Okay, I will share my executive director's report, a couple of highlights. Now, I do, as the committee members know, I do sometimes, we put out a monthly executive director's report. Maria, Elena, and Valerie, I hope we have added you to that list. If you don't receive it, please let me know, and we'll make sure that you do get that. But I do also like to provide a verbal update on things that have been happening recently as part of the meeting. So I'll start with an update to our longstanding goal to relocate our Woodland bus transfer point out of the county fair mall. Since 2018, we've been working to identify a location that's more centrally located in downtown Woodland. And that it helps address some of the safety issues that many of us and our passengers have experienced at the county fair mall. I think a key challenge has been identifying a location that works for us and also works for the city of Woodland. And last year, I was very pleased that we and the city agreed on a new location on Main Street between 5th and 6th Street in front of the quote unquote new courthouse. But so it's great that we found the location. The next step is how do we pay for it? The cost was, we had estimated a little over $1 million to do all the necessary upgrades to the street, the sidewalk, installing new shelters, lighting, signs, etc. Well, now I'm pleased to say that on March 5th, the SACOG Transportation Committee approved $1 million in funding to construct the new transit facility in downtown Woodland. It's going to go to the SACOG Board of Directors this Thursday for final approval. And if approved, this would allow us to finalize the design and begin construction with a timeline being that we believe we'll be ready to launch service at the new transfer point in downtown Woodland in summer of 2027. So a lot of credit to Brian Abenat, who wrote that application and has really been instrumental in making that happen. So very happy to report some good news. Another item I wanted to share an update with is our transit operations contract. At our last meeting, we talked about this, that we are currently in the process of going out to bid for a new private company to operate our transit service. Our provider TransDev has had that contract for many years, and we've gone out to bid, and we received 4 bids, four qualified bids from 4 qualified bidders, or proposers, I should say. We have an evaluation panel that has met and reviewed the proposals and interviewed them. And we are very close. We think we'll be making a decision within the next couple of weeks and bringing that decision to our board for approval for a new contract, which would start in August. So we appreciate that Chair Lisa Baker has served on that committee on the evaluation panel on behalf of the CAC. It's been great to have her input and perspective representing the CAC in that process. And then lastly, I want to give an update.
Can I just also say, just for the committee members, I just want to give great feedback on the process that the YTD has put together, a really strong voting panel. I am a non-voting member, so I just get to talk. But you have a great depth of knowledge and expertise and some unique perspectives, and it's been a real joy to listen to you and your colleagues as we work through the process.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The last thing I want to update, and then we'll talk about the long-range calendar in a second, but it's about the short-range transit plan, which lays out the vision for our transit network for the next 5 to 7 years and where we want to go with it. You've had, of course, multiple conversations around it over the last 18 months or so. Just wanted to share an update. At the last board discussion about the short-range transit plan, we were talking about different scenarios for if we need to reduce service due to budget challenges, where would we cut service and how? The board asked us to go and do an additional round of outreach to get feedback on those service cut scenarios. And so to do this, we've been working with each jurisdiction to go out and do that outreach. So earlier this month, we presented to the West Sacramento Transportation and Mobility Commission, the Davis Transportation Commission, currently working to schedule a presentation for the Winter Yolo County 2x2. And also did a meeting with Woodland City staff to get their input and recommendations on behalf of the city of Woodland on that. So we think we'll be bringing that back to you. It's a good segue into the long range calendar. If you could show me the next slide.
Okay, before we go to that, since
Oh,
you're
sure.
doing outreach, I do know that that's a particular interest of some of the members on this committee, who comes to mind, and I believe some of the new committee members as well. Is there a way for these committee members to plug into that outreach?
Well, so we are going to be bringing it back to this committee in July for this committee's feedback before it goes to the board for approval. So that will be the best opportunity, I think, at this point, given that most of that outreach has happened over the course of the last couple of weeks. Although we are still waiting for the Woodland Yolo County 2x2, so that could be an opportunity for, if you're looking for, if committee members are looking for a way to be involved, that's one place where they could plug in still. That meeting hasn't happened yet.
Well, I do think, we can use the CAC members, especially those that have communities that are hard to reach, as one of the ways we can do that. And we kind of think of ways that we can plug them in. I know that's a particular interest of some members.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. And what I would say is for this is kind of a bonus round of outreach. We did a lot of deep community engagement earlier in the process, and this we're sort of trying to do a relatively high level. What the board asked us to do is not kind of start over with deep outreach, but just do one what you call, I guess, call a lightning round in government speak.
I appreciate that,
For
but
this
it
one.
is kind of something to think through maybe for the future.
Okay. Great. So then on the long range calendar, your next meeting in May, that is when we do our annual budget and work plan. Our fiscal year starts in July. So we will be bringing you the budget and work plan for the next fiscal year. What are we going to try to get done between July of 2026 and June of 2027? And we'll also be talking to you about our Yolo commute program, which is our program where we give incentives to commuters for taking transit or biking or taking alternative modes to work. Got a big expansion of that's in the works, and want to get your feedback on that. And then in July, as I mentioned, we're going to be coming back to you with our short range transit plan recommendation.
Any comments or questions from anyone on the commission? We'll start at the Valerie, work our way the other way this time.
Not this time. Thank you.
I just would like to support what the chair said about using your committee to do outreach in the future. I think that's a great plan. Some of us are bilingual, so it would be useful to have faces and voices that people are familiar with to kind of get them motivated and interested in what you're putting out there. Thank you.
And I'm glad to have 2 new members. And that makes us we have a full complement.
This is one, I think.
We're missing one, a representative from the city of West Sacramento now.
Okay.
Yeah, we were so close.
Anyway, good to have you.
Thanks for having
I can
us.
tell
Yeah,
you're good participants.
thanks for having us.
Carrying on to my left.
I don't have the additional announcements.
No, I don't have additional comments at this time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Seeing that we have none, I believe we're adjourned.